Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of the Celebrity Creator Show. Brian, how are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing absolutely astrologically terrific. How are you doing, Kathy?
Boy, now that wasn't any kind of play on words there. I love that. I'm doing phenomenal, and I'm as excited as you are to welcome our guest tonight. But so let's get started. And we would like to share with you our very special guest, and her name is Carol. And Carol studied astrologically and graduated with a certificate in esoteric and Jungarian astrology with a specialty in astrological counseling from the Shear Astrological Institute in Los Angeles. As with any course of study and vocation, Carol continues to learn and hone her craft with a long-standing master group of astrologers that enables her to deepen her experience and bring that to her clients. Now, Carol is not a big proponent of predictions, and she prefers the mystery of life to unfold as she lives it. She's been taught to use astrology as a tool for self-knowing and understanding and a path of transformation. This is how Carol presents astrology to her clients that are looking for insights, understanding, and answers to the questions about her life. Brian and I are so excited to welcome our special guest, Carol Pilkington. I'm going to say it wrong. Pilkington. Carol, I'm sorry. I am so tongue-tied. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Hi, Carol. Welcome to the show.
Would you please say your last name correctly, because I have totally butchered it.
Pilkington. Say it in 3 words. Pilkington.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I apologize for that, and we are excited to have you tonight.
I'm very happy to be here. It's such a pleasure.
You know, Carol, we understand that you're an astrological counselor. So Kathy and I are absolutely new to this, very green. What exactly what is astrological counseling?
Astrological counseling is a service that helps people understand the cycles of life, understanding who they are, and understanding the archetypes, the universality of our behaviors and patterns from an astrological perspective. How the planets affect us, or reveal to us, I should say, they're not necessarily affecting us, but reveal to us the universality of life. And so when people are looking for answers that they can't find in a conventional way, they would come to an astrological counselor. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I am not a licensed therapist in any way. So if anybody needed therapy, I would certainly have a list of people to send them to. So I wanted to make that very clear.
Awesome. Well, you know, we recently talked about astrology, right? And my knowledge prior to talking with you was what I coined kind of dime store. Now, I cannot remember the woman's last name, but one thing that I shared with you was back when I was a teenager that I had purchased this book. The lady's name was Susan something.
Miller. Susan Miller.
Susan Miller. And it was very interesting to me because I was born in the month of April, and so I quickly went to the section on Aries. So my knowledge was actually from that standpoint. I'm like, oh yeah, well, some of the stuff sounded like me and some of it didn't, but I thought that was so interesting, and then went on to, you know, spend a quarter and get the little roll. I don't know if anybody else has done that out there. They had like little rolls and scrolls, and I would open it up, and, you know, it would talk about what my love life was going to be, and, you know, how many kids I was going to have, and all of this good fortune and stuff. So I have already shared that with you, and like Brian said at the onset, this is we're novice in this, and that was my whole experience and has been so far in my life. So we're just so excited and very interested to see what it is that you're going to share with us. Totally separate from that 25-cent little scroll in the book that I bought back when I was 16. But can you share with us what motivated you to pursue this type of career and work within astrology?
You bet. I'd always been fascinated by astrology and the the way it can actually show a person what's going on in life. And I met a teacher and one of my best friends back about 11 years ago now, and he was the perfect teacher because he taught in a way that was metaphysical in nature. So he didn't talk in predictions, and so I wanted to learn more. I found it fascinating in the way that I was able to learn more about who I am in such a way that was so unique, and I thought that that was amazing. So I learned a lot about myself, but it also helped me learn about others as well. Learn about our likes, dislikes, different tendencies that we might have, and I was just amazed by it and the accuracy of it.
Wow, this is really fascinating. I really haven't heard of astrology as being utilized to counsel people. I've heard of it from the standpoint of, what's your sign, and like we were talking about before the show, I can spot the Big Dipper and, and the Little Dipper on occasion, and I know it has nothing to do with that as we're talking here, Carol. But on that note about counseling, how does one actually go about choosing an astrologer that is right for them, whether it is for either consultation or even classes? How would one go about that?
That's a great question. I think just like anything else, when you're looking for a professional, you need to have a conversation with them, interview them like you would be on a job interview or anything like that, or interviewing an employee. You need to make sure that what they say resonates with you, their manner and their philosophy, if that's going to resonate with you. So it's very important to be selective, and so that's how I would go about it. Have some questions laid out that you want to ask them, and what their method of training is and stuff like that. I think that's several of the really important things to keep in mind, that it is an interview process and you have the right as a client to choose who you want to work with.
And do you find yourself very often turning people away, or what's been your ratio, your hit ratio, so to speak? Do most people fit with you?
I would say most people, once they go to my website or they've heard about me through other people that know me, they usually call me because they resonate with what I do and how I do it.
Excellent.
So I don't turn too many people away.
Good.
So when you're selecting somebody that may be able to help you and counsel you in this matter, you've shared a few points of what they should look for. Is this type of business, is this something that folks can go out and look on the internet for? And when you're looking, Carol, other than the things that you've shared with us, what are some of the things that people should steer away from, maybe?
That's a good question. I would say that's kind of a subjective question too, because it's
Right.
kind of one of those questions where you don't want to, you don't know what people are looking for. So it's really hard to pinpoint what they should and shouldn't be looking for. I would say experience matters, how long one has been practicing, and what the feel of whatever, if they go onto a person's site, what the feel of it is, and if it resonates with them again. I don't really know what to say for them not to look for. It all depends upon what they're looking for and what they feel comfortable with.
Well, since you're putting it in that way, are there different types of astrological, I don't know if I'm saying it correct by saying astrological, but are there different levels or different different programs that somebody would look at? So would that be something that might differentiate, or is it all kind of the same type of program but at different levels of it? I'm not quite sure how that works.
There are actually many different types of astrology. There's Vedic astrology, which is from the Hindu and Indian perspective, and it's a little bit more predictive. What I practice is Western astrology. And Western astrology is more of the transformational astrology and cycles, looking into cycles of life. People may want to have vocational astrology. There are all different kinds of astrology in that. There's vocational astrology where people might want to know what type of career path they should go on. There's horary astrology where when you ask a question, you can actually erect a chart specifically for that question, and it brings up a chart and helps you answer a question. So it can be used, that can be used as a contemplative tool. There's also an astrology where it's called elective astrology, when you want to find a particular date for an event, like a wedding or whatever, moving. So we can put up a chart to take a look at when the best time to do that is.
Wow. I had no idea there were
There's
that.
There's also astrocartography to show you what the best place to live is, whether you want to concentrate on career or relationship and family. So it's really an interesting study.
So is there actually a science to it then?
Absolutely. It's a science and an art.
Interesting. I had no idea there were so many different types and subtypes of astrology. So the ones that you just went through, transformational, the cycles, vocational, charting, elective astrology, astrocartography, I hope I'm saying all this right, are all those components of what you are calling Western astrology?
Yes.
Okay. And are you, is that part of the services you offer are in all of those subcategories as well?
I'm probably geared more towards the transformational and transpersonal,
Okay.
the esoteric and psychological astrology, rather than the elective or horary or any one of those. I can do it. It just takes me a little bit longer.
You know, one of the questions that just came in was from Gene, and he's saying, as a novice, how would he know that he's connecting with a professional? And that's a really good question, because like with any type of profession out there, sometimes it's really difficult to differentiate whether or not they are a true professional and know what they're talking about.
I think how long they've been practicing, and you'll also want to ask for references to see what their track record has been. I think those are two really good ways of finding out about their knowledge and how they'll be able to help you.
Awesome.
I'm really enjoying
I think
this.
somebody that's been practicing about 2 to 5 years has enough base and knowledge to begin to do consultations with someone. There's a thing of ethics that gets involved here, where when a professional, any professional, feels that they're getting in a little bit over their head, that they know enough to refer them to another professional that can take them to the next level. I think that's really important to know, and to question that professional, whether or not that they would be honest enough to be able to do that.
Wow. That's excellent advice.
And Jean just said, thank you for answering that, Carol. Yeah, that was great.
A great question.
Thank you.
Wow. This is like really, really interesting stuff. I had no idea, as we said when we came on, but this is neat. There's a lot of different types of astrology. I had no idea. It makes it even more interesting. So transformational, esoteric, psychological. Before we go on, and before I forget, because I always seem to let this run too long. You remember that, Kathy, huh? But
I knew you were going to do it.
yes. You all see this beautiful young lady beneath me and over to the side of Kathy as we're watching live on Celebrity Creators. That's celebritycreators.com. If you are watching somewhere else, and you know who you are if you are, get on over to celebritycreators.com, because it's very important. Beneath all this, beneath her beautiful moving face, is a very static, beautiful face of Carol as well. You want to click right on her nose. Not now, though. Don't do it yet. Because if you do, it'll take you to another page. You'll hear us, but you won't see us, and it would just be rude for you to leave us right now. I mean, you know. But click on her nose after the show's over, and that will take you directly to her Facebook fan page. Be sure to hit the like button and start up a conversation with Carol that way. If you don't get enough information from tonight's show, by all means, hook up with Carol. Hook up anyway. And also keep the questions coming as we're going live. This is fantastic. In addition to that, there is a banner beneath that has Heart-Centered Astrology as its title. You can click on that banner, and that's where you can get to know more of the essence of what Carol does and what she's about. The best place to connect with her, it seems, would be the Facebook fan page, but also you can check her out on her website directly. Is there any other good way for them to contact you, Carol? Or is that it for now?
You can contact me. You can call me at 661-298-1229, and you can also email me at carol@carolpilkington.com.
All right, fantastic.
Awesome. Well, I want to cover a couple of questions here from some of our viewers. First of all, Carol, someone by the name of Carolyn is saying, "Hi, Carol, you rock." And let's see, it looks like Jeannie is asking, is it wrong to inquire about what a typical session or charge would be for services of your type? Would you want to answer that, or should they contact you for that?
I would love for them to contact me.
Okay, and then we've got, looks like Marianne is saying, can she expand on the charts that talk about where you should move, maybe how those would work?
Excellent.
Sure. Basically, if you give me a place that you want to move to and some dates that you want to move, I would look at those charts, and there are certain planets that would be able to, and where they're placed in the chart, that would tell me when the best time to move would be. It gets into a lot of detail after that, and then it would correspond to the individual's chart as well. So it's quite a process to go through.
Okay, and then we have another one from Carolyn, who's saying, I heard that the next Mercury in retrograde, this may make sense to you, retrograde offers opportunity for different signs to work on different issues. Can Carol talk about that? And I had to miss a little bit, so if this is a question that's already been asked, she apologizes.
Mercury retrograde is always a great time for, I would say, reevaluating, rethinking things. Mercury is about the thought processes and our communication and how we move forward. It's got to do with transportation. So if anybody is moving during a Mercury retrograde, I wouldn't recommend it. And if you do have to move during a Mercury retrograde, I would recommend just going with the flow and knowing that things may not work out the way you plan. But with regards to the next Mercury retrograde, it all depends upon how it's affecting a person's chart, whether they're going to be really affected by it or not. But most importantly, any Mercury retrograde is a time for going inward and reevaluating, rethinking, and just taking another look at things, and it could be a completion of a cycle. It doesn't mean that we have to stop life just because a retrograde is in place. We always have to continue with life, but just remember that what we plan during those times might not work out the way we envisioned them. That doesn't mean anything good or bad. It just, just might not come out the way we planned it to be.
Okay, I got a question here. This is killing me, and I see it's killing other people. The same exact question.
Yeah.
Way back in high school days, I remember listening to a radio station out here local in California. It was a rock station, KMET 94.7. I think that was the station it was on. And at times, I think it was once a week, some guy came on and did the King Biscuit Flower Hour. Real weird name, but he did astrology, and he mentioned Mercury retrograde. And I thought, what the heck is he talking about? Could you please explain what exactly Mercury retrograde is? I've been dying to know that. And so apparently are others that are watching right now.
Well, like I was saying, Mercury retrograde, Mercury rules our thought processes, our communication, transportation. You know how oftentimes during a Mercury retrograde, people say their computers went haywire and this went haywire, their cars broke down. Well, oftentimes the Mercury retrograde brings about those times when we should have been paying attention before something broke down, but now it's really putting it in our face and saying, now you have to fix it. Now you have to do something about it.
Well,
so it's always good to know when things are starting to break down, so that when a Mercury retrograde comes along and it breaks down, you're not getting all upset about it.
So Mercury retrograde, and I get analytical because I'm an analytical kind of guy. We're talking about the planet Mercury or the substance that goes in a thermometer? I'm serious.
Mercury
I don't
is
know.
The planet. Mercury is the messenger.
Oh, okay.
So think of it that way.
Interesting.
It's the messenger, and so it takes your messages, whatever it may be, and moves them along. And so some people might have communication mishaps during Mercury retrograde. You might be talking to somebody and not being able to communicate it well enough for them to understand, or vice versa. They might not be able to receive it the way you want them to receive it. And so sometimes communication has to be really taken more patiently, and so you don't want to send any emails out there that might not go out very well, might not be received very well. You want to be very careful. And if you're blind copied on an email, don't ever
reply,
forward it on, or resend it. The people that you don't want to get it might get it. So those kinds of mishaps sometimes happen during Mercury retrograde.
So it's more like Mercury
that's very interesting, because that's telling us that there is certainly a science behind it.
Yes.
It's more like
Mercury.
Mercury.
That Mercury is always about redefining, redirecting, rethinking all of our communication processes, our transportation, or anything that we're moving from one place to another.
Is that like kind of from mythology? That kind of Mercury? More along those lines? I'm really struggling with that one.
You kind of like bleeped out on us there for a minute, Brian.
Oh. So I was just curious if that Mercury, does that have anything to do with mythology? Isn't that?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, there we go. I feel better now. Thank you. Other people, there was someone else on here that thought it was a planet as well. So we're like all going, what is this Mercury thing? Okay, cool. Man, we're learning a lot tonight. Where are we?
We are talking about what our birth month was, I think.
Ah, yes. Okay, fantastic. Yes, let's go into those. I think I'm a little more less dumb, I should say, in that area. I hope, but we'll
No,
let
you're
Carol
not
do all the
dumb.
talking. Now, a lot of people know that what sign they're born under, Carol. Like Kathy was born in April, and I was born in August. And is that all the information you need on a person to move forward in helping them, or do you need some more than just their birth date?
A birth chart is erected based on the longitude and latitude. So I would need where the person was born, city and state.
Wow.
I need the date and time. Time is very important because it sets the chart up to where the planets are placed in those segmented pieces of the pie, which are called houses. There's a circle and there are 12 segments of that circle, and those are called houses. And so wherever those planets are placed in the houses, it's very important based on the time.
Wow.
And your rising sign. You've heard of the rising sign.
Yeah.
So somebody is asking, Brian, are you a Virgo?
Yes, I am. I've
Yes,
never
he
liked that
is.
because when I was a kid, it doesn't bother me so much now because I'm comfortable with it. But when I was a kid, I was like, I'm a girl.
Oh, oh my goodness. Well, everybody's writing really fast. The keyword twins are Virgos, and
I
don't
am
know,
too.
and Carol is too.
I think we're all born around the same time.
Not me. I'm
You're an
like
Aries.
like
You're
the
early
old
April,
ram.
right?
Pardon me?
Early April?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So cute.
So is that significant in the whole of things as far as astrology is concerned? You were talking about the different types of astrology. So where does the month that we were born and the astrological sign that's attached to it play in with the different types of astrology that you were talking about?
It doesn't really. That doesn't play into it as much. It doesn't. I don't quite know how to answer that one.
Not at all, huh? So
No,
another.
no, your birth sign in and of itself doesn't matter with regards to like vocational or electional astrology, but it does have a difference, does matter with regards to your personal astrology, like the psychological transformational astrology. It absolutely matters, and how it relates to the other planets in the chart.
So is that something because you had mentioned that you work with the transformational type of astrology, that you would chart something for somebody and look at the different houses like you were talking about?
Right, and I would also look at the correlation of the planets, where they are now, and how they relate to your own chart, and where the planets were when you were born.
So how important is, you're talking about chart, and one thing that, so I don't fully understand this, but one of the things that we're talking about and I'm saying is chart, and in going to your site I saw that you have a chart wheel, and I was able to put my birth date and the time that I was born, and when I did that I saw all of, for lack of understanding, I'm going to say hieroglyphics, but there were little icons, or because of computer, they were like little icons, and I was clicking on them, and it brought up different information for me, and I can be quite honest, I didn't understand what all of it meant. But how important is that chart process and what it is that you offer with your clients?
It's very important. Consider the houses, excuse me, the stage, and the planets are the characters, and the signs are the mode in which those characters play out life. So, for instance, the sun in the seventh house in Virgo would mean that the person is service oriented. They show how they relate to a person one-on-one based on what they do, their deeds. They want to be of service to anybody that they're in relationship with. The seventh house, which is the house of one-on-one relationships, contracts, how they relate in those arenas is going to be very practical, down to earth. They could be meticulous. You've heard sometimes Virgo described as being perfectionists, organized, so they want things in order. Little things like that. Those are archetypes. Those are universal ways of looking at how we perceive life.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm like just mulling that all over. Being a Virgo, that hit me. That was like hitting a nail on the head, except for the organized part. Not me. I'm not organized.
Well, a lot of Virgos like organization, but they don't like to organize themselves.
There you go. Does
that make sense?
Yep, that's right on as well. Got me.
I'm only speaking from experience. My own experience.
Fantastic. It's the best.
So there's actually some traits then within certain astrological signs that are shared, and where does it differentiate between individuals? Is it because of the birth time, or the birth time and different stars that are lined up, or planets at the same time? How does that work?
That's a great question. I think what makes us different is really our perception of life and how we live it. All the planets can manifest in a myriad of ways. Not every one of them is going to be the same, and yet there are similarities. Just in our own unique beingness, we're different, and yet in many ways we're very similar. So there's the universality of life, and then there's also the uniqueness of life, and that's what I love about astrology, because it can help a person discover that. You know, so many times we're told, well, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that and you shouldn't be like this and you shouldn't be like that. But if we look at it from an astrological perspective, it can be understood why a person is the way they are. That's not to say that the map is the territory. It's just a map and a tool and a guide to help a person along their journey. So it's a way to kind of perceive and help one understand who they are and what they're about, where they might be going in life, and also to do the same for others, to understand a little bit more about them and how they see life. I had a client come to me one time, and we were talking about her communication with her husband. And when we looked at his chart, we found that he communicates differently, and he sees things in a certain way that she didn't really understand. And when I brought it to her attention, it changed the whole way in which they communicated, in which she saw him and was able to understand what he would say and how he would say it. It's really amazing. And another client came to me, and we talked about her son, and again, it was a life-changing experience for her to see him in a different way and to relate to him in a different way that changed everything for her. So it's really an amazing tool that I just love to watch the transformation. When people leave my office, and if they can get at least one thing, like one aha moment out of it, it's made it. You know, it's just completely makes me jump up and down.
Yeah, that's got to be incredibly.
You know what? I think that's so cool because, as with any of us, when we do what we love and what we're passionate about, if somebody gets it, I mean, that is such a fulfilling moment. I've got to share this with you because this is something that we talked about as well. And Jeannie's saying, what about those astrological horoscope blurbs that we see in the newspaper? Is that something that can be believed, or would that be considered too general?
I think it's a little bit too general because there are so many things that go into reading a chart. You've got other planets that interact with one another. There's the sun, the moon. The sun is where we're going to, where it's our bliss, it's who we are at our essence and our core. But we don't always recognize that because it's clouded by our conditioning, which is the moon. The moon represents our emotional behavior and how we perceive the world, as well as our safety, how we feel safe and comforted and in those arenas, you know. So we're more or less coming from our moon, and it's our sun that we're really wanting to get to.
Well, Marianne says that it sounds better than a personality test like Myers-Briggs, and Carol Shockley says, this one I've never heard of, does everyone have a wave spell? She said she was once told that she was a blue eagle wave spell. Does that mean anything to you?
No, I've never heard that before.
Wow.
Well, Carol,
And
we're
that's
not sure. We're going to have to do some investigation on that.
Never heard that.
Wow, Carol Shockley, you win a prize. You stumped our guest. Right on.
Yay!
She gets a Cupid doll.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that one
that's
either.
great.
A wave spell. Huh. Interesting. And then there's transformational. What does it mean for me? What to do, like where I am now and where I am going? I'm not sure if that's a question. I think it's a question. By Dorothy.
Well, let me see if I can
Carol,
answer that so that I hope I'm answering it correctly. Basically, it's a way to help us understand. A lot of times we think if we're going through life and things aren't working, or something needs to change, we feel that we need to change. We often feel that we're broken and that we need to be fixed. When what astrology shows us is that we are perfect as we are, and it helps us understand who we are, where we're going, and what we can do in life to become more self-aware. So that's the transformational part. The more self-aware we become in life, the more aware of others we become, and we can relate better to one another.
Oh, very well put.
You know, we have growing pains, and sometimes we think the dark moments will never pass, but astrology can show us when we need to be patient and when we need to take action and things like that.
Wow.
Well, the Keemer twins are asking, with twins born 5 minutes apart, how would that be calculated? My answer to that would be pretty dang close and fast, if you ask me. But I don't think that's the answer they're looking for.
That's a great question. I was hoping a twins question would come up. Because no matter whether they were born 2 minutes apart, 5 seconds apart, or 5 minutes apart, how that person perceives life is going to be different. That's where I was talking about before, about the uniqueness of each individual. Twins have the symbiotic relationship, but they still have their own viewpoint and view of life in general and how they take life in. So no two people, twins or not, are going to be able to, are going to see every single solitary thing the same exact way. Does that answer your question?
Waiting for the Keemer twins
Does
to
that
say
answer
yes.
your question, Keemer twins? Give us a yes or no there, and she can expand if not. But that was great.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What, Carol, I'm curious, and you know, you've probably had a number of clients, and not to put you on the spot or anything, but, and I'm guessing they come with all sorts of different issues, and you filter them out, as you said earlier in the show, you know, to find out whether or not they're a match or a fit for you and your services. What would you say is the percentage of success when utilizing astrology for a particular situation with your clients?
I would say about 98%.
Wow.
Yeah. The very few people that come to me that it might not have worked out for is that they were looking for something that I couldn't give them. Somebody came to me a while back and they wanted to know when a particular cycle was going to end and if it was all going to be rosy and perfect and great at the end of that cycle, because they were just so frustrated with the way things were going. And since I can't make predictions, I always have to say to the person, it all depends upon if you're doing the work that you need to be doing to create that result that you want. So it takes participation. It takes participation and engagement in life to have the end result that you want. Somebody once said, well, am I going to meet my perfect mate? Well, my question is, what are you doing to make that happen? Am I going to make $1 million next year? What are you doing to make that happen? So we have to realize that there's a participatory action that needs to occur in everyone's life. And I can't make those predictions.
So you're saying we can't just sit on our couch and put our fingers together and go home and look up and say, I want $1 million, and it'll fall in our lap? We can't do that?
I'm afraid not.
I'm so disappointed.
Of course you can.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a good science to that either. But we've got another question, Carol. You once said that, and I'm not sure when you said this, but apparently at some point, be a resource before you are a vendor. Can you explain your remark about getting in the door of a business? Does that mean anything to you, or?
Be a resource?
Yes.
Oh, basically, I guess that means giving people as much information as they possibly can before wanting to, before you want to sell somebody something. I think it's really important to provide people as much information as possible and give them what they think they might want to hear so that they can make a viable decision whether or not they want to work with you or not. I think it's really important to give before you presume that you're going to receive anything.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Now, without going into too much
this.
detail, could you go over a couple of clients, like say what kind of issues they came to you with that did fit you and you took care of their issue? What would be a typical issue that someone would come to you for that really could be helped?
I think that there are people that are in transition. They might not know what direction in life to go in with regards to career. They might be in a relationship where they're wondering whether they should get out of, or get into. They might be having communication problems. They might be walking on a path and just want clarification and validation that they're on the right track.
Okay.
So while I don't advise anybody on what to do or what not to do, I use astrology as a backdrop for a dialogue so that they can make their own discoveries. it's unethical for me to ever advise or say what someone should or should not do. I can tell them what possibilities are there for them. I can, according to what I see in the chart, and I can ask questions so that they can become more clear. But to give advice is a big no-no in astrology.
You know, and I think it's ethics play an important role in a lot of different business models. So it's certainly good to hear that that would be the case when working with someone in this medium as well. Let me ask you this: if somebody uses astrology as you suggest, will people notice or see a shift from where they were when they came in and asked you to advise them or counsel them, and where they are headed to, or where they intend to end up?
Absolutely. I often see a lot of people leave with less anxiety, and I've had people come back to me months later and tell me that what I shared with them and what they discovered in our consultation meant so much, and it helped them in making decisions and improving their communication with people. It's that's the joy I get out of it when I hear feedback like that.
And just to remind everyone, we are on, as you can see, with Carol Pilkington, who is an astrology counselor, and we are discussing Astrology, a Path of Self-Discovery. For those of you that may have come on a little late, we just want to remind you to connect with Carol. You see her picture down beneath us, not live moving, the gorgeous Carol beneath us, but the other gorgeous one that's not moving. Click right on her nose, as Kathy is showing you. Not right now, though. That'll take you away from our live show. You'll hear us, but won't see us. Not a good thing. But definitely go there, click the like button, get connected with Carol, and find out more about this incredible concept and topic of astrology. I mean, this is blowing my mind. It's really interesting. And also, there's a banner beneath that's labeled Heart-Centered Astrology. That is her website. You can get more in-depth information there, as well as Kathy mentioned earlier. She went and put in some information on a chart wheel. I'm going to go try that after we get off the show, because I didn't know you could do that, and see what all those hieroglyphics were. That I'm going to try to figure that out and have fun. But anyway, be sure to do that. Click on her nose and then click on the banner and get connected with Carol. So you might find out that you're a perfect client for her. You never know. This is incredibly intriguing. Go ahead, Kathy. Take her away.
You know, we had talked about the different forms of astrology. And we know which one that you're adept at, and that's the transformational and esoteric, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel? Now, of course, you have your area of expertise, but which one would you say works the best, or should different parts of astrology be handled and worked with different issues?
Again, if you want to find out the best place to live, the best time to have an event, that would be the electional astrology. That's a fun type of astrology. A friend of mine was getting married a couple of years ago, and we were trying to figure out the best day and time. Now, time during of a wedding is really, really tricky, because it's when they actually sign the marriage contract is
Wow.
when it's when you want to time it for. And so it was really interesting to have everybody in agreement. You know, when you go down to City Hall, wherever you go to get your marriage license, and or you have it witnessed, it's an interesting thing to have everything timed according to what the astrological chart is saying. So those are kind of fun. When somebody's planning to move, where to move to and when to move, it's another, and that's a real science. That's an incredible science, to be able to pick those days and times. Sometimes there's a window of time that you can choose, but this one particular wedding, it was one day only, and within maybe a 10-minute frame that this person needed to do this ceremony. It was interesting.
Well, you know, when you're talking about moving, this is just really fascinating to me. So when you're talking about moving and you're talking about charting it and picking specific days and times, what is your advantage by knowing what particular day and time to do this as opposed to just doing it kind of willy-nilly, if you will?
That's a great question. You want to have as little conflict as possible arise. You want to have as few obstacles come up and challenges. So that's the advantage of it. To have everything run as smoothly as possible, and it sets up the whole period from when you move in to when you you know, start living that life, and a wedding. It sets up the whole marriage.
Wow. I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Dying now.
I was just going to say, from a flow perspective, if you do this like you're saying, and it kind of sets it up, for lack of better knowledge or wording here, does that put you into the flow in a better realm as opposed to not? And if, as most of us who are not familiar with astrology, and I'm going to go back to my kind of silly term willy-nilly, if we just do things and we don't do it according to day and time and having it charted, does that mean that our chances for success or good moves or great marriages is less than somebody who prepares in this manner?
I would say that life is going to happen no matter what. And I don't live my life according to, it's not like I wake up in the morning, I look at my chart and the planets and what they're doing, and if they're not set up right, I don't go out of the house. Life goes on, and we have to live life. But it's always nice to have that added advantage to have a nice flowing life, to have something go according to the way we plan it and things like that. So do I pay that close attention to my own astrology? No, I don't. If I did that, I'd never leave the house.
Well, thanks for asking.
Let me say this, it's not because of astrology that life happens. Astrology helps reveal what's going on in the day-to-day life and in life in general.
You are
Awesome.
such
Thank
a
you for
breath
that.
of fresh air, Carol. Gosh, that's fantastic that you would be so candid and say that you don't let this rule your life. I was wondering that kind of thing. It's like, my gosh, do you chart out and plan your life every day by this? Because some people actually do, I've heard, and it's like, wow. What that would be like in jail all the time.
Yeah, we got to let a little bit of spontaneity happen.
There you
right?
go. That's what we're talking about. Hey, I got a question I've been dying to ask. On your counseling sessions, Carol, and they're probably vary in length and time, but what is a typical counseling session for you with a client? Is it like meet or on the phone for an hour once a week for so many weeks? How do you break that up with your clients?
It's usually, a session is usually about an hour and a half. Usually maybe you'll go to 2 hours. It depends upon the depth and, you know, how deep people want to go and what's going on in the life and the chart. And if things are going on in their life and the planets are affecting their chart in such a way that it's going to be a lengthy period, sometimes people will come back to me in maybe 4 months or 6 months. I'll often get people coming back on their birthdays as well.
So you're saying
that's kind of a cool birthday treat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that most of them you complete in just one session, 1.5 to 2 hours?
I would say about half of them.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So we have absolutely touched on some phenomenal questions. Not only that we kind of came together with each other on because of the fact that, as Brian shared at the very beginning, very novice at our understanding of astrology. And we had some phenomenal questions from the folks that have been on with us tonight. It's been so enlightening. I don't know about the viewers watching, but I can tell just I watched Brian's gears moving and just and I know for me too, just it has enlightened us in a way that we would have never imagined. The kind of interesting thing here is the fact that we have known Carol for going close on 2 years. And so it's been an honor for us. We're like right at the end of our hour, Carol. Remember we said at the beginning, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe how fast it goes?
No.
Yes.
We're like here. But we met you almost 2 years ago, and we have had conversations about all kinds of things. But to have the opportunity for you to come on and share what you are so passionate about, not only with Brian and I and enlightening us in a way that we had never imagined, but also for those that joined us tonight to share the knowledge that you have on so many different levels, and particularly the topic of astrology that touches you most, that you share with so many people. Brian and I just want to tell you, thank you so much. We finally got you on and worked it out for this week. We're so honored to know you and so honored that you would spend this time with us and with our viewers. And Brian, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, and just one word in my mind defines you, Carol, and that's sweetheart, because we got to see you this past week in the mastermind group, and you were just such a wonderful, warm woman, and it was so great to see you basically discover your true passion and to have you get directed in that way. It was just a wonderful event, but it couldn't happen to a nicer, warmer person. And gosh, you have enlightened me, and I'm sure Kathy, so much. Thank you for coming on and clarifying so many things. You wouldn't believe how many misconceptions I had about just astrology. You know, it's usually never as simple as one might think. There's all this stuff to it, and you so eloquently explained all the different types and the subtypes and what your area of expertise is, which it turned out to be my favorite area of the ones you explained, along with, I like that charting thing where you do the dates. That sounds interesting, but I won't stay in my house in case you know, the dates say I'm not supposed to go out or something. But thank you so much for your candid responses, your transparency, and just for being you, the sweetheart you are. We've really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm very honored. Very honored to know the two of you and getting to know you better, and I really appreciate the people out there coming and supporting and asking the questions that they have. I wanted to shout out to the Keemer twins and Carol and Carolyn, and thank you so much, you two. I really appreciate you and love you very much.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right,
Our
everyone.
pleasure.
We will be back next week with another fantastic show. I want to say hi to Marianne. She's been typing away madly in the chat room as well. But we'll be back next week with another fantastic, phenomenal show. I don't know if we can top this one, but we're going to sure try. We will see you all again next week. Thank you once again for stopping by. Bye-bye now.
Good night, everybody.